Welcome to ReConnect with Plant Wisdom. I'm your host, Tigrila Gardenia, nature-inspired mentor and leadership coach. In this podcast, I share ancient and modern knowledge from biology to spirituality about the wondrous ways in which plants can help you lead a naturally conscious life. Hello and welcome to episode 20 of ReConnect with Plant Wisdom. Today we're going to talk about when you're feeling stuck or you need a new perspective, ask a plant. Okay, this might seem like an obvious episode for me to put together, but it's really not so obvious, especially because tons and tons of people want to communicate with plants. Most people, even if they don't believe in plant communication at all, will talk to their plants. And so there is already one form of relationship there and an understanding that plants can help us in so many aspects of our lives. But I find that many people either don't listen. So lots of plant people who will talk to their plants, but will forget to wait for the answer that the plants give them, or they will forget to work and talk with their plants when there is some need. In other words, we think that all we can do is receive universal messages of love and harmony and all that kind of stuff, which we can receive. From plants, we'll go out into the woods and hug a tree and receive sometimes these massive galactic responses, which again are very important. But there's another side to it, or better said, and there is another side to it. It's not a but, it's really an and. And the side is that plants being of another mother world, in other words, the plants that we see here in our human animal world are a version of the plants. The plants have created themselves, you could say, a body in order for them to be here on this plane with us. But this means that the plants themselves live in another world. Some might say, I don't know, a dimension, another plane, another stratosphere. I don't know, another way, another place that there is. I try to put these words into something that everybody can understand. But this means that actually plants don't follow the same temporal direction that we as human beings do, in the sense that we have a feeling of time and we live in a time, and our general understanding of the constructs of time is very linear based, right? I can go forward in time, I maybe can go backwards in time, and that's pretty much it. There's a line of continuity. But plants really, in addition to the forward and the back through time, they can actually venture out into other timelines. So they can follow different paths that across the different timelines. So we're on a timeline and we might branch out to a timeline, but that means we're no longer in the main timeline. We're actually in a branch. This reminds me of Loki on Disney Plus, on that series, which I think is kind of connected to a lot of the things that I'm talking about right now. But plants basically follow a different form of time. In other words, they connect into the fabric of time in a different way. In essence, they see time as a fabric, a temporal vegetation, you might think. So this means that if we think about time rather than as a linear construct, and we instead unfold time as a fabric. And you've heard this. I mean, we've heard these types of expressions in our fairy tales and our stories and our movies, the fabric of time. And in essence, time really does work this way. Time is made up of a whole series of events that don't necessarily happen one after the other, but instead are happening simultaneously across many temporal places or locations. And so plants can actually move across these different temporal locations. They can, you could say, they can explore the fabric of time in a way that's very different from the way we as humans both perceive and live through time. This gives them a massive vantage point because we can really only see forward and backwards with the current constructs that we're stuck under. As we expand more working with plants, as we work with kin to really push our own senses and move our ways out, we're going to be able to see a lot of these things too. But for now, most of us are still stuck in this kind of two-dimensional or two-way form of time. Plants aren't. Plants can move across these different points and these different parts of the fabric of time. And this means that they can see into the future, into the past, but they can also see from the sides. They can also see from above, from below. They can explore what's happening in the here and now, or what may happen or what has happened from very different lenses. And this means that when we're running into problems where we're kind of stuck and we can't see the way to move, or we are in something where we're so deep in our own perspective, our own way of seeing things, that we're struggling to find solutions or to even just explore new possibilities, working with a plant directly can be very helpful, because the plant can help bring in these different vantage points and show us what the exact same scene that we keep replaying over and over in our heads. They can help see it from a different point of view. It's kind of like having a different camera lens that allows you to see a different way of how that entire scene played out. They also, being of a different world, means that they can adapt to different universal laws. Plants, in essence, can have learned how to work within the universal laws of where we live. So we, in this animal human world that we're experiencing, there's a series of laws, like guidelines, rules. There's all kinds of different things. Physics will teach you some of them. The magician's laws will teach you some others. There's lots of different ways from thinking about this. Plants are masters at adaptation, right? We've talked about this time and time again. If you go back through some of the old podcasts, about the fact that plants are excellent at being able to adapt. And part of the reason why they're so great at adapting to their environment is because they've also, first and foremost, to even come into this plane of existence, have had to learn how to adapt to the universal laws, which means that when we're working through a problem where, again, we're stuck in the context that created it, working with a plant and asking a plant for help, direction, new ways of exploring this allows them. So kin can actually step in and share with you some of these different aspects, so they can adapt, they can help us journey through the adaptation that they've done, and they can help us be more flexible, help us kind of interact with some other law. And the cool thing about this is that if we're used to building something in a specific way, when you have the opportunity to explore it through a different lens, because we're looking at it from a different lens in time, but also to adapt to it using a different law, it really does add a new perspective that probably we've never had a chance to explore before. So working directly with a plant and asking a plant for help through a situation can give permission to the plant to be able to bring you on this journey. You know, plants really follow a completely different logic than the human logic that we follow through, because we as humans are great at avoiding things. We run away from our problems, and we have a tendency to always use the same type of solutions. Where plants, on the other hand, have to be innovative and have to always be looking for the most avant-garde, you might say, solution, because the solution has to be adapted to the current situation and the current problem set. It has to be adapted also to the space in which it's in. So there's these constantly changing conditions that plants live in, and therefore they're looking for solutions on a regular basis that break out of maybe the norms, because the norms no longer work as the terrain and the environment evolves and changes and moves into different things. So basically, there is a completely different logic, problem-solving logic, that plants possess. And so when we go to a plant and when we sit with a plant, whether that's a house plant that has learned how to adapt to the environments inside your home, or a plant in the landscape, and preferably a plant in the landscape that has created the problem, you can ask that plant for guidance that helps you better understand the landscape from the perspective of a different point of view. Again, always moving out of our vantage point, of our reference point. That's the word I'm looking for. Always moving out of our reference point and giving us a different perspective. So one discussion with a plant can show you a very different view than the rigid human logic that we experience, because plants don't have those same type of rules. Even if they were to be following a set of rules on a continuous basis, the fact that there are rules that are different than the rules that we follow, the guidelines that we experience the planet with, means that already the answer you're going to get from a plant is going to be very different from the way that you would have thought about this. So it's really would be an amazing experience for you to take a moment when you're in that situation of feeling really stuck, or feeling like you can't find any solutions, or you can't even see the problem for what it really is, to connect with a plant and ask a plant for advice. I think we can all agree that music is the true universal language. In fact, what we think of as language is actually musicality. And I would argue that plants may be the greatest composers of all. By using the music of the plant's device, plants are now able to share their healing and communicate with us in a language we can understand. Music of the Plants now has different devices to experiment with, whether you're a musician looking to play along with your plant friends, a healer who wants to enhance their practice, or simply curious. In the show notes, you'll find a link to purchase the right device for you, such as this Bamboo M. There are also all sorts of fun extras, such as downloadable interspecies music and plant music merchandise. So click on the link to the music of the plants in the show notes to discover how you can start making music with your plants today. Going to be the logical things that we're used to. Now, that's the other piece of this puzzle, is that sure, you can go and ask the plant, but to receive from the plant, it is extremely important for us to step out of also our norms. Now, plants communicate with us using our emotions, using our senses, using our experiences, even. So, our memories, they come in and can connect into us, pulling out memories that might apply to the current situation in which you're in. Now, you might not see it and see why it applies to you, which is why it's extremely important for you to record everything that comes from that conversation with the plant, because it's not going to be so obvious how it is that you can take the memory that's coming in. Actually, you're probably going to want to discard that memory. So it's really important for you to open a space where you're going to have this discussion. It's not a casual, I pass by a plant and I just say, hey, by the way, if you know something, let me know. You could do that maybe when you're way more advanced. But if you're in the beginning parts, it's important in that beginning of that relationship with plant communication. It's really important for you to open yourself to a space, to create a space that feels comfortable, safe, and dedicated. Because in that space, everything that comes through your mind, everything that you feel, everything that you remember, everything that you experience is connected to the answer. It's the tools that the plants use in order to be able to communicate with you. And it might not be a quick realization for you to understand what exactly the plant is trying to communicate. So most likely you're going to have to take it all in, record it all, and then later sit down and be like, okay, how do I put these pieces together, merging from what the plant just shared to me into a human step and a human set of logic and understanding. So it really is a process that takes time to develop. And that's really the reason why this is exactly why I founded the Naturally Conscious community. I wanted to give us a space and a place where we could explore these types of communications. It's not so much I go out into the woods, I hug a tree, I get a simple transmission about, how glorious the planet can be and how it's important for us to stop, polluting or things like that, which are all important messages. I wanted a place where we could talk about paradigm shifts in how we work with plants. And a big part of that is bringing plants in to our general conversations. As you know, spider plant, which is a plant I talk about often, is my business partner. So when it comes time for us to strategize, I will sit down with spider plant. I will create that safe space with us, and I will give us the opportunity to really work on what this is, on what we're working on, what it is that we're talking about, what is it that the goals that we're trying to achieve, and then allowing spider plant to use all the different logic that spider plant has, all of that plantness to talk to my plantness. And so to find new strategies and new ways of new ways of doing, I guess, but new ways of being even inside of our business. So these are the types of things that just take time. And in the Naturally Conscious community, we have a space where we could talk about these, even from the frustrating of, I don't know how to do it, to the, oh my goodness, the plant just showed me this memory. And it took me about an hour or two before I realized that this memory is connected to this thing over here. And that is exactly the answer I needed for the problem we were working on together. So having that place where it's non-judgment, where it's open, where it's also trusting and believing, or at least where you can work through your doubts. That's what we have when in the Naturally Conscious community. And that's exactly what we play out in our different master classes and in the class, in our courses, and even in just our art projects and such. All of these are guiding our connection and our communication, are helping us expand it and helping and allowing the plants to better communicate with us and us to become better receivers through that connection to plantness. So remember that when you're stuck, you don't have to just sit there and ruminate in your own mind. You can go out, find a plant that you feel really has an experience worth sharing, and open yourself to having and asking that question to the plant and letting the plant use all of your memories and emotions and sensations and even your dreams and experiences to give you an answer that will take you into a whole new logic. When you do this, though, I want to hear about it. So please be sure to come into the Naturally Conscious community and let me know what you think or how you've experienced this for yourself. Because that's the other piece, is that the more we share this work, the more we activate different parts of our plantness with others, because their experience has helped us realize maybe things that we didn't think were connected but are, and vice versa. So the more that we share our experiences with others, the more that we really strengthen that plantness within us and those connections with the plants. So that's it for this episode, which is episode 20 of Reconnect with Plant Wisdom. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking with you soon in the Naturally Conscious community. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Reconnect with Plant Wisdom. Intro and outro music by Steve Shuley and Poinsettia from The Singing Life of Plants. So join me, Tigrila Gardenia, and my plant collaborators next time on Reconnect with Plant Wisdom.